Nisargadatta Maharaj, whose book I Am That was fundamental in terms of my beginning to see a new level and depth in spiritual work, said among many things that reality is hard, infinitely hard. I think the first time I sensed the hardness of reality was the passing of my mother. Because I couldn't handle the absoluteness of it, the totality of her loss, the fact that she no longer existed in this immediate space that I inhabited, that I couldn't get on the phone and call and say, hey, how are you? That I couldn't have the affirmation that came back from her acknowledging me. The loss of that was like hard, just real. I couldn't turn in any direction and make it other than what it was. And there was an enormous suffering that went along with that. The unwillingness to accept what was, or if you will, what is. Because it just wasn't the what is that I wanted to live with. And Elizabeth Kubler-Ross described stages of dying, which are also stages of people dealing with what is. And they're all the periods of grief after death, the periods of grief leading into death, force us into an accommodation with reality. And we all have different strategies. My sister-in-law's mother died a couple of weeks ago, and her mother had a line that she really lived by, which was, get over it. And Susie, my sister-in-law, kept saying to me the last couple of days, because it was just her birthday and she was feeling the loss of her mother, and all she could hear was, get over it. And it's not a bad strategy. It might be a little premature, but it's not a bad strategy. How do you deal with reality? Well, first of all, many of us spend our lives trying not to have to deal with it, not even to have to accept that it exists. We really like to think that we can change reality. We can change what is on some level to accommodate our desires, our sort of hopes and aspirations. And in many ways we can. We can change the world if you have the skill, the drive, the passion, and the good karma, or let's just call it the opportunity, to make changes. But I think everyone who knows and experiences life senses that there's a hardness just a little bit off-center, just waiting to be run into. There's the hard truth of reality. And it's going to come to all of us at some point in time. And the one ultimate reality we all know, and nobody likes to talk about it or face it or think about it, which is what happened to my mother and happened to Susie's mother and happens to everybody ultimately that we know, including us, which is we will cease to be here. If you want to know a hard reality, the reality of your passing from this world and the reality of losing those you love is absolute. It's an existential truth. And how we manage in life to live not knowing that is one of the great mysteries. The true reality of life is that it ends, and we all live as though it doesn't. Somehow, you've heard this before, we're the only ones who are going to escape it. We don't know how exactly, but somehow we're the lucky one. And we back into reality. We back into it because nobody wants to look at it. And the more real you become in your life, meaning the more available you are to truth, meaning the totality of truth, the more people aren't going to want to talk to you, especially if you're going to be a purveyor of that truth. They don't want somebody around telling them, this all ends. It's like, not now, not now. And also you don't want to live with that on some level. You don't want to live with facing the darkness. You don't want that. But not facing it makes all of the living that you do somehow less real and less substantial. Not facing truth gives your life the aura or the patina of an illusion. And you know it. You know it. You know the dance that you're doing. You know the avoidance that you're in. You know the fact that somehow your life is not fully informed by truth. And as you back your way into truth, you will find all sorts of fears and buried thoughts rising up because you're not looking forward. And it's really hard, and I'd say in some ways harder, to live a life without reality than to live a life with reality. It may not look harder, but it's always moving against an invisible force. And it doesn't have to be invisible. It can be very visible. Life is what it is. Everybody's life has stuff you don't like, stuff you don't want, stuff you wish had been otherwise, stuff that if only that hadn't happened. Everybody's life has that. Nobody escapes it. And yet we all seem to suffer it as though it's our own private problem. Like we're the only ones. Nobody would understand. But that very thing which you wish hadn't happened has happened. And the moment you stop denying it and you go, okay, not that you like it, not that you love it, not that you think, oh, thank you for bringing me truth and reality. You just go, okay, this is, now what? And the word I keep hearing is, get over it. Get over it. Move on, because you're still here. You're still alive. You're still in a body. You still have coffee to drink in the morning, assuming you have coffee. You still have, I had this unbelievable urge the other day for strawberry ice cream. God knows what. I haven't had strawberry ice cream in years. And I went out and I bought Haagen-Dazs strawberry ice cream. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed this strawberry ice cream. I don't even know why it said to go get it, but it did. And I didn't have to eat the whole container. I was talking to Dean about that. You don't have to have 4 containers of strawberry ice cream to satisfy that thing. And it was like pure heaven. Pure heaven. And it was enough for whatever that was in my life. I learned something really powerful in class today. I can't tell you how I learned it or why it happened. It was when we were working together. And I felt something really kind of amazing. That the absolute hardness of reality can soften. That as hard as it is, it gives way. It doesn't give way to the push. It gives way to the non-push. It gives way to the, oh, that's real. That's real. And what happens at that moment is you stop fighting it. You stop pushing the borders of it. You stop doing that. You just get some strawberry ice cream. And it's like, wow. And sometimes you see reality coming at you from far away. A lot of people can see that. Or very quickly, you can be on the Titanic and go, ugh! Reality is coming really fast. You know, maybe you would engage the reality of the Titanic differently than the reality of circumstance in life changing. But it comes at you, and you have a choice. And the choice is, you can stare at that reality coming at you with an enormous amount of fear and tension and drama, or you can have some strawberry ice cream. And you can go, You can be in the moment. You can be in the moment. And when reality finally hits, it's still in this moment. And there will be another moment, and another moment, and another moment. And they will be possibly on the other side of that reality. And you will discover that it was a permeable hardness. That as stiff and dense as it was, somehow you went to the other side of reality. You can look back at it. You may not like that it was there. You may not like that it passed. You may not like that someone you loved is no longer here. You may not like it, but you're still walking down the road. You're still present. And you learn from that a great deal. Ultimately, no matter how hard reality is, there's another side. You move to another side. And if that happens throughout your life, why doesn't it happen at the very end of your life? Just a proposition. If the ultimate reality is final and absolute, who's to say that you don't keep walking? I'm not trying to propose a fantasy here. I'm trying to suggest that there is an endless presence, there is an endless what is in our lives. And it operates independently of circumstance. And you can always enter into, embrace, and love what is. And if you stay close to the bone of that, no matter how hard it gets, the permeability of reality will work for you. It doesn't mean you won't grieve. It doesn't mean you won't go through Kubler-Ross's stages of acceptance. That's all process. But the easier version of this process is stay here now. And what you discover in meditation, what you discover in sitting still, what you discover in practicing meditation, is that you can find that space. Somehow, you can take a half an hour a day and go, and then there's this thing about wanting to hold that. Let me hold that space. Well, you can't hold that space. I say this week after week. You can't hold that space. You can just not give in to the thing that wants to. Just let go. And if you let go of the thing that wants to hold it, it stays present. But as long as you're wanting to hold it, you can't. It disappears. Because the you wanting it divides you into this dual element, me and it. But being in the present has this extraordinary quality. There's no you and it. There's no you and it. It is. It is. Isness is. And there is no struggle in that space. There is no reaching for the next moment, looking back to the other moment. You're just there. Meditation shows you the doorway. It shows you what that feels like. And if you can just let go and be, it's always there. It's always there. Reality gives way to presence. Or reality is presence. Ultimate reality is this. And this will be this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, forever. You know, if we could get out of our minds, which is the whole goal, if we can get out of our minds, there would be no suffering, and there would be no struggle, and there would be no anxiety, and you would attain what isness. And, you know, the frustration of what I'm saying for almost everyone is that you can't get out of any of it. All you can do is work it. Moment to moment, work it. And as long as you're working it, it works. And then, if you're lucky, and we talk about this a lot here, the working element, the thing that's trying to do it, is gone. And then the doing it without the trying is all that's left. You're just doing it. You know? I spent a week with my granddaughter. She's not trying to be anything. My granddaughter is not trying to play. She's not trying to have fun. She's not trying to do anything, and she's doing everything perfectly. Perfectly. And the minute she tries to do it, and I hate that moment when it arrives, she will start to deal with reality, because there will be her and it. But right now, she is reality, and there's no duality. And that's where we all are, if we want to be there. And until it arrives, practice it. Practice being still, practice being present, practice being open and available, and then at some moment, practicing is over, and you'll just be it. And you won't even know how it shifted, it'll just shift. Realization happens. You'll go, oh, I don't have to try. Done. So that's the game we're all in. The game of coming up against reality, which is a game of a mind dealing with hardness. And then there's a dealing with the reality of reality, which is that it feels like this. It feels like this. Permeable, open, available, and in charge. Can't escape it, but you can sure be one with it. Any questions?
I get a call from an acquaintance who has been told by doctors she'll die in 2 weeks, and this has been going on for a couple years. And she has people that she wishes would change to her will, and she spends her time talking about them. And she calls for a feel-good moment. In the last call, I just did a bitch slap. And I'm wondering how best way to be in relationship with this person.
Well, I mean, it's kind of, you have to figure out what that person wants. You know, it's not our job necessarily to try to give everybody a spiritual awakening. I'd say most people would rather you didn't do that. You know, they want what they want, and if she wants 2 minutes of comfort, well, give her 2 minutes of comfort, whatever it is. Say a nice thing, a kind thing, a nice thing, which is fine. Reality will intrude. It will do what it has to do, and you're not in charge of that, unless you are. Unless it comes to you that you are the one who has to do something, and then own it, and go for it, and do whatever you have to do, say whatever you have to say. But it's not necessarily your obligation. And you know, some people want to die in a state of confusion. They've lived that way their whole life. Why should it be different at the last second? You know, why should they change it then? They're not going to, and they're going to die with a lot of disturbance. And what happens then? Well, you know, we can all venture to say what's going to happen then. I have my own ideas what will happen then. But you know, it's, as you live, so you continue to live and die. And you know, you can really alter that a great deal through what we're doing. You can begin to approach all this, although it's not a guarantee. It's a little bit like Lama's classes for women having childbirth. You know, breathe, breathe, practice, practice, and then you know the moment comes, you go, ah, help me. You know, it's like all that practice went out the window. You know, it didn't help at all. Well, that may be what meditation is. It doesn't help at all. On the other hand, who knows? Who knows? I mean, reality is reality. It will come as it's supposed to come, and you'll learn the lesson you're supposed to learn. But in the end of Lama's screaming or not screaming, this unbelievable thing is in front of you. You know, it's just there. And from what I'm told, women often forget the pain of childbirth because life is so unbelievably phenomenal. This holding this living entity makes any form of pain worthwhile. Well, maybe death will be similar. You know, just go through it and you're done. But anyway, I don't think we can change people who don't want to change. I don't think we can bring people to reality who don't want to face reality. I talk about it here, even knowing that many people in this room who are here to see reality are still kind of, you know, 12 shades of blindness, you know, trying to not quite look at what I'm pointing at. And I understand it. You know, it's hard. I look at it for myself. It's hard. Reality is, you know, it's the narrative of your reality, the story of your life, is rarely what you want it to be, or the way you want it to play out. Once you say, okay, it's just different. You know, I mean, Jackie here, I mean, Jackie's one of the great stories, you know. You know, her life didn't play out at all like she wanted it to play out, but she's living the most wonderful life. And will be the first person to tell you that, and probably should write 12 books about it, because I think it will inform half the world, you know. This reality is what it is, and when you get through it, you survive it, and you're in the new place. You're where you're supposed to be. And that's a very important thing to know. And for people who are backing into it and avoiding it, get over it. Get through it. Do it.
Would you say that, you said that some people who live in a state of confusion go on sometimes so that it's not our job to change that? And would you say the same applies to anger, if people live in a state of anger?
Well, if they're asking for you for help, and they're really available to that, then sure, go for it.
But in the case of someone not asking,
you're just going to make them angrier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
No, we can't change the world that doesn't want to be
Can't reach out
changed.
to people who don't.
You know what you can do, and this is the one lesson I've had in my practice, and that is you can be present with them. And it doesn't mean giving them any single word of advice. It just means being present. Talk about what they want to talk about. Be available to their inquiry, their line of thinking. And if you're present with them, it does this very powerful thing. It relaxes the issue. It relaxes it. And then, in the middle of that relaxation, you can do this thing, which is love them. Love them. And they'll get it. They won't know necessarily that they got it, but it will go in, and they will be a little less angry. And even if you're just present with them and listen to them, just listen to them. That can do wonders. Listening is one of the greatest things in the world. Most people don't listen. They're already planning the thing they need to say. They're doing the ego one-upsmanship. Oh, you did that? Really? You got a new car? I got a new car, and I'm going to get... people do that all the time. They don't hear each other. They don't listen. So just that simplicity is so valuable. And being present with another person is pretty much the most you can really do for anybody. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you very much. Next class next week.